Hey parents, this is Jenna Butler, your son or daughter's chemistry teacher. I'm going to send out an email with all of this information if you prefer to just read through it as opposed to watching this video. But I figured it would be easier to hear it from me. So some updates on grades. First of all, I appreciate your patience with all of this. Obviously, remote learning is new for your kids and new for us and new for the school district. It kind of feels like we're building an airplane while it's in flight. So I know things have changed and things will probably change again. But I appreciate your flexibility and your patience as we figure this out, and your patience with your kids. I'm sure you're starting to go a little stir crazy too, and I know they're working hard or trying to work hard, and online learning is not easy. So I appreciate your support. So last week, the science department got an update from the district and from Legend with more specifics, and you may have seen this from Mr. Jacob, but here's what we know. First thing, grades are held harmless for third quarter. So what does held harmless mean? It means that anything that your son or daughter took right before spring break and after I should say after spring break, anything your son or daughter did, it cannot hurt their grade. So basically we need to freeze their grade at third quarter, see what it is, and their grade can only go up from there with the opportunities provided. There will be no final exam. Does that mean I won't give a test at the end about what we learned this semester? I have no clue. That feels very far away. I'm working week to week here, but it won't be in the final exam category, so it definitely won't be as much pressure as typical finals. We're only allowed to give formative grades, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I have to put in missings. So if your son or daughter doesn't do something, I can't just leave it blank. I have to put in a missing, but their grade can't go down. So that means I have to put in a missing and then exempt the grade, which I think is difficult for you to see from your end. For me, it's obvious. It turns the assignment gray, but I do think that's confusing for parents. And then no interims, which are quizzes, or summatives, which are end of unit tests or labs, even if they are optional. Your son or daughter may have taken an optional summative for me, but that was before this information was presented, so I'm still going to honor their time and their work for that summative, but going forward, no interims or summatives. So I'm just going to be transparent. There is a struggle with this information from the district. Here's some of the struggles kids and teachers and parents, I'm sure, are having. First of all, what were the third quarter grades? We don't have a frozen picture of what those third quarter grades are. I know, for example, I was grading stuff that kids did before spring break, after spring break, right? The grade book's always changing. You can take a picture of it, but what's going to be the definition of a third quarter grade? Some other struggles. The current breakdown is that our formative, which is what we're only allowed to put assignments into, is 15% of a student's grade, which at this point doesn't make much of a difference. Interims, like quizzes, are 25%. That makes a difference on their grade. And summatives are 40%. The final exam is currently weighted 20, and we just talked about how this is not even happening anymore. So a struggle with that is that your son or daughter might have a lower average in the interim category or the summative category, and because it's weighted so heavily, it's bringing their grade down, and there's nothing we can do to change that category right now. So that's kind of a struggle that we have to overcome. And then the other struggle, and this is more on my personal note, is the Canvas to student portal communication. I think it's called the campus portal or student portal. For teachers, it's called Infinite Campus. It's the same thing. It's where your students look at their official grades. So right now your kids are turning a lot of things into Canvas, and I grade it on Canvas, but it doesn't immediately get transferred to the portal where they see their official grades. At midnight each day it gets transferred. So it's very possible that your kid takes a formative quiz or a check for understanding or an exit ticket that's worth maybe anywhere from 1 to 8 points. And what if they perform poorly on it and that gets transferred to the grade book at midnight? Well, that goes into this category, but it might be bringing their grade down. So I have to manually go through every day and look, did this bring a kid down? So that means I'm looking at a kid's grade from the day, I'm screenshotting their grades every day and then looking back and forth for every single, even if it's a 1-point assignment, to see if I need to exempt it or not. That takes hours and hours, and it doesn't feel like the most effective way. And then I'm getting emails from kids, my grade dropped to 0.2%. Okay, I'll go check. So that's been a struggle that we have to work through as well. Okay, this is called the solution. I don't think it's a perfect scenario, but I think it gives us options to help your son or daughter raise their grade and to have better communication and make it super obvious to you how your son or daughter is doing with remote learning. So the first thing I did is create a new category in the gradebook called remote learning. That category is weighted at 0%. So I moved everything that your son or daughter has done from the formative for remote learning, so after third quarter, from the formative category into this new category called remote learning. If your son or daughter did not do the assignment, I put a missing in, which calculates as a 0, so you can really see what your kid is doing. You will actually see an average grade for your son or daughter. So for example, if you see a 30%, that probably means your son or daughter is not doing many of the assignments. Or maybe you see that they've done a lot of the assignments, but they have a 60% average. That tells me maybe they're struggling with understanding. The cool part is you can see the average, how your kid is doing, and see the missings and know that your kid's not doing or turning in what maybe they said they're turning in, or that maybe they're confused and they need to reach out and get some help or support. But it's weighted at 0%, so it's not calculating towards their grade at all. So for example, I've seen some parents say, oh, my kid missed the first Zoom call, they were confused, they didn't figure it out, and so there's a 0 there. That's okay, it's not hurting their grade, it's just so you and I can communicate back and forth, and you know, oh, they said they were on the call and they weren't, or I can kind of see a pattern. Is something going on? Do I need to reach out? The other thing I did is I took the final exam and got the percentage away, because we won't have a final exam category this year, and moved that 20% to the formative. So that makes formatives more heavy weighted for their grade. So anything that we put in the formative category will improve their grade bigger than when it was only 15%. So interim and summative are the same. Those are locked in. I can only put in formatives, but I will be putting things from Canvas into the remote learning, which is not impacting your son or daughter's grade. So what can you expect? How is then what they're doing on Canvas right now on remote learning going to actually end up impacting their grade? Well, once a week, I'm going to look at what your son or daughter did that week, depending on how many assignments were assigned, how many points, things like that, from the remote learning category. And I'm going to create an assignment in the formative category out of 0 points and give them bonus points towards their grade. So for example, for the past 3 weeks, your son or daughter has been doing remote learning. I looked at their average in terms of completion, and I put extra points in the formative category based off how they've done. So they should have seen their grade rise. So what that means is, let's say they had a 90% for the first 3 weeks. They got 9 out of 0, 9 extra credit points in the formative category to raise their grade for the work they've done for the first 3 weeks. So what can you expect to look for as a parent? So you should be paying most attention now to Canvas, or not to Canvas, excuse me, to the parent portal or the student portal, the remote learning category. In there, you will see their average grade for remote learning, which gives you a good picture of what they're doing and how they're doing. And I'm going to leave missings in there. I'm not going to exempt them. That's hard for you to see from the parent lens. So a missing is calculating as a 0. They didn't turn it in, or they did not do that assignment. So you can really see in a genuine way, how is your son or daughter doing with remote learning. The other thing you can expect to look for is every week, once a week starting now, you will see a formative assignment in the grade book. So these guys are weighted at nothing. This one is in the formative category, which is the 35%. And it's going to be scored out of 0 points. So it'll show up as a 0%, but what you'll see is something like this. It'll say like, okay, your son or daughter for remote learning week 4 got 3 out of 0. And what that means is I'm just adding 3 points to their formative category, and you would be shocked at the difference that makes. My goal is that depending on the week, and let's assume your son or daughter completes everything and really gives a fair effort, my goal is that your son or daughter's grade will raise around 1% each week. Again, it depends on the amount of assignment that week, and it depends where your son or daughter's grade is at. Think of it like a range, anywhere from 0.5% to maybe 2%, depending on what your kid already has in that category. But what I found is this actually gives kids opportunities to really raise their grade, and it makes a big impact. So again, those are the things you're looking for. I'm sorry if this was confusing. I know it's kind of a mess. Please reach out and email me if you have any questions or if I can help in any way.